10. SCP-6096, The Guest. Object Class, Keter. What it does, periodically visits a random person on Earth, compelling all who see it to aid it in finding and capturing its chosen target. Upon reaching the target, captures them under the sheet it wears, securing them in a presumably extremely painful way. Why it gets its classification, per the file, it comes and goes whenever it feels like it, and if it ever decided it didn't want to come back to its containment cell, we have literally no way of forcing it. There is nothing the Foundation can do to prevent its active hunting phases. If it targets you, you will die. Even worse, it is entirely impossible to plot to do it harm. You cannot ask someone to kill it for you, cannot try to attack it yourself, cannot even try to set in motion a chain of events that might end in its demise. You will always be compelled never to harm it, and even to actively protect it. Article rating, 7.5/10. Existential crisis level, 2 out of 10. Painful death? Yes. Scare factor, 6 out of 10. 9. SCP-4666, The Yule Man. Object Class, Keter. What it does, in winter, stalks the homes of families in remote locations who have at least one child under the age of 8 over the course of 12 days. At the end of 12 days, oof. Why it gets its classification, according to the Foundation, it's likely an ancient creature, and in all its years of being on the Foundation's radar, it has never been contained. The best the SCP Foundation can do is monitor locations where it's likely to appear. Article rating, August 5, 10. Existential crisis level, 2 out of 10. Painful death? Definitely. Scare factor, 9 out of 10. SCP-4666 is one of the SCPs mentioned frequently across the community as one of the scariest SCPs out there. It's easy to see why. In its active phase, which has been recorded to be from December 21 to 22 to January 1 to 2, SCP-4666 stalks families who meet the following criteria. Live north of 40 degrees north latitude. Has at least one child under the age of 8. Isolated location. Lots and lots of snow. The first few nights are relatively harmless, with only the young child seeing signs of the creature. After the 8th night, however, the rest of the family will begin to detect the creature's presence, which will understandably create a growing sense of paranoia. By the 12th night, one of two things will happen. 85% of events the Yule Man will brutally torture and murder the young child's family in front of them, before kidnapping the child and forcing them underground, where they must make gruesome toys until they're so tired, hungry, and thirsty that they can't anymore. Once they are no longer suitable for labor, they become new parts to use to make the toys. 15% of events. Congrats, I guess. The Yule Man has chosen to give you one of his fabulous toys. Sure, it may be made of flesh and hair and nails or whatever, and you might be scarred for life having received it, but it's a far better alternative to the 85% who received a much different gift for the holidays. 8. SCP-428, The Crowd. Object Class, Euclid. What it does, connected by a large mass with writhing tendrils, SCP-428 is a huddled crowd of grinning, dead-eyed people moving in perfect unison and hunting down new victims to join its crowd. When entering its hunting phase, the crowd will chase down prey, and, once that prey is cornered, insert one of its tendrils into the victim and replace their innards with an unidentifiable fluid. The victim, completely erased and their knowledge absorbed into the mass, will join the crowd. Why it gets its classification, it's not super hard to contain. You cannot hurt the individuals made part of the crowd, as they don't seem to feel any pain and heal insanely quickly. But you can hurt the mass at the center if you can find a way to injure it even with its crowd constantly surrounding and protecting it. The Foundation seems to have the containment of this SCP on lock for the most part, with one major sticking point. Every time the mass absorbs someone, they gain their knowledge. This resulted in a security breach that ended in the absorption of several Foundation researchers and soldiers. The mass, being able to learn, grow, and adapt, only gets more dangerous the more people it absorbs, and it cannot be allowed to gain an understanding of the SCP Foundation or any possible means of escape. Article rating, July 5, 10. Existential crisis level, 3 out of 10. Painful death? Probably. Scare factor, 7 out of 10. 7. SCP-610, The Flesh That Hates. Object Class, Keter. What it does, infects all lifeforms with a highly contagious skin disease that turns the victim into a horrid, fleshy abomination over time. Body horror fans will love this one. Why it gets its classification: there is no known way to contain it. While it is technically contained so long as no one ever gets anywhere near the infection sites, actually curing or preventing the illness after exposure is another matter entirely. Article rating, August 5, 10. I highly recommend reading the field logs. Existential crisis level, 4 out of 10. Painful death? Yes. Scare factor, August 5, 10. This one used to scare me a good bit, but not as much as some of the others. However, in the past few years, I think we have all learned exactly how well we would handle a pandemic. Not well. Now, ramp up that pandemic into a highly aggressive, borderline sentient disease that turns its victims into something straight out of a Cronenberg movie. That is the flesh that hates. But it gets even better. Once those infected are far gone enough, they will actively seek out other lifeforms to infect. It's like a zombie movie, but arguably even worse because the infected don't need to bite you or scratch you to infect you, they just need any physical contact. Hell, it's not even known if it's possible for this disease to go airborne, which would definitely result in an extinction-level event if this were the case. This is the kind of infection that, if it spreads far enough, there is no hope of stopping it. It means the whole world is condemned to a very, very painful and horrifying death, and this eldritch horror flesh monster will continue to grow until it spreads across the world and engulfs everything and everyone. 6. SCP-871, Self-Replicating Cake. Object Class, Keter. What it does, self-explanatory. It self-replicates every 24 hours. Failure to eat every cake in the 24-hour time frame results in a new instance of SCP-871 manifesting. Why it gets its classification: eat the cakes, or they'll keep duplicating, over and over and over again. If any one instance of these cakes starts duplicating out of control, the file estimates the world would be overrun with cakes and become uninhabitable within 80 days. Article rating, 8 out of 10. Existential crisis level, 7 out of 10. Painful death? Not the worst way to die compared to some others. Still, I'd rather not die, thanks. Scare factor, 7 out of 10. 5. SCP-923, a useful tool. Object Class, Safe. What it does, it's a satellite that orbits the Earth and can be fired by the O5 Council at varying intensities, causing massive cognitive damage to those affected by its blast. Why it gets its classification: it only seems to listen to the O5 Council and can probably be easily destroyed if it becomes too much of a problem. So for now, the Foundation just lets it keep on floatin'. Article rating, 8.5/10. Existential crisis level, 4 out of 10. Painful death? Probably. It doesn't seem to kill directly, but it drives everyone in its blast radius to insanity, and people can be very creative with their kills. Scare factor, 8 out of 10. For SCP-3001, Red Reality. Object Class, Euclid. What it does, it's a wormhole of red nothingness, slowly decaying anything inside but keeping it functioning as long as at least 40% of the brain remains. Why it gets its classification: it's possible to take precautions to avoid anyone accidentally creating the wormhole leading into this non-dimension. But it seems that messing around with reality-altering technology means your safety cannot be guaranteed. Article rating, 9.5/10. Definitely read the audio log. Existential crisis level, 9 out of 10. Painful death? Slow, excruciating, and maddening. Scare factor, 9.5/10. 3. SCP- What happens after? Object Class, None, Dameron Class Cognito Hazard. What it does, warning, read at your own risk. Why it gets its classification. Article rating, September 5, 10. Existential crisis level, 10 out of 10. Painful death? Something like that. Scare factor, 10/1. 2. SCP-001, When Day Breaks. Object Class, Apollyon. What it does, it's the sun. If the sun were an SCP capable of transforming living beings into slimy zombie-like abominations with its rays. Why it gets its classification. What do you do when the sun turns against you? When any natural light turns you into a horrid, slime-like creature forever suffering, never dying? Article rating, 10 out of 10. Existential crisis level, 10 out of 10. Painful death? Yeah, right. You wish you could die. Scare factor, 10 out of 10. 1. SCP-5000, why? Object class, safe. What it does, it's a suit that filters you from outside perception, including from things of the anomalous variety. Why it gets its classification, the suit is safe. The anomaly turning the entire Foundation against humanity? Probably not so safe. Article rating, 10 out of 10. Existential crisis level, 10 out of 10. Painful death? Ironically, not for the person in the suit, I guess? Scare factor, 10 out of 10.